Good afternoon. We are starting now the opening ceremony of this competition, the Hague Inter-University Law Debate Tournament, edition 22. My name is Aurélien Lorange. I am the person that you received a lot of emails from, and with my colleague as well, Anna Maria Urbanova, who is as well here in the call. We are very happy to welcome everybody, meaning our distinguished guests, our sponsors as well, of course, the students from all around the world, and as well the partners and friends for this competition. So today we'll have actually this ceremony with several elements to present to you. And as well, we would like first of all to thank everybody for connecting and watching actually this ceremony as well on YouTube, because we are having a lot more universities this year for this edition. We have students coming from North America, South America, Los Angeles, for example, in Ontario. We have as well Brazil, Chile. We have as well, of course, more universities as well in Europe. In Africa, we have the first participants as well from Africa. We'll be participating from Nigeria, from as well South Africa. And we'll have from Middle East as well. We'll have as well in Armenia, and I saw that there is already one person connected from Armenia. And we'll have as well from Asia and even to Melbourne in Australia. Which, speaking of Australia, is great as well to have the Australian ambassador who kindly accepted to speak to all the participants of this competition around the world. And before introducing properly His Excellency Ambassador of Australia to the Netherlands, I want to say a few words. First of all, this is actually the 6th time we are organizing this competition, but it is as well the 3rd time we are expanding this competition to have more universities to participate. And obviously, this year we'll be having more in terms of organizing, but as well we'll be very happy to see all the students competing as well using their legal knowledge, because all the participants studied law or are studying law. And so I would like as well to thank, obviously, our main sponsors for this competition, who are Oxford University Press, who have been supporting us for this idea of having a law competition, law debate competition for this year, expanded to many universities, and as well absolute internship with the, let's say, internship provider for many students around the world, and as well who will be supporting this edition. So now I will introduce our first speaker, who will be actually the Australian ambassador to the Netherlands. So a few words before giving you the floor, Your Excellency, and many thanks again for accepting to say some words and as well to be interviewed for this ceremony. So His Excellency Matthew Nieuwhouse is the current ambassador for Australia to the Netherlands. He started his position in the Netherlands in 2018, but he has a long career in foreign affairs. He has studied in UK, in Cambridge and in Sydney, but he has worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, first in Canberra, but as well in several countries, like in Kenya, like in Ghana, as well in New York, and Sierra Leone, in Senegal and Gambia. So it is our pleasure to welcome His Excellency Matthew Nieuwhouse. So are you online, Your Excellency, at this moment?
I am online, Aurélien. Can you hear me? And I thought
Yes.
I was sending my video as well.
Yes, I'm. Voila, I just stopped sharing my screen, so everybody can see you now.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yes,
And thank you very
would you like to say some words?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you very well.
Yes. Yeah. Good. Well, thank you very much, Aurélien, and thank you for this very kind introduction. And my greetings to all those students who are online. And what an important and exciting event this is, to have this international competition. on international law. And I'm delighted that from my own country, Melbourne University has joined you. I have to say this is a major moment for our international rules-based order and international law, with the unacceptable invasion of a sovereign country by a permanent member of the Security Council. And we cannot but reflect on this violation of the United Nations Charter at this point, on which our whole world system depends. And we trust that it will soon be restored to a proper balance, and that indeed the possibility of peace talks will soon take place, while the brave Ukrainian people defend their sovereign territory. This is a basis on which international law and the international system depends on sovereignty and respect for the United Nations Charter. And international lawyers are guardians of that. And so for this new generation, I really tell you, your work is more important than ever. I was also asked to speak a little bit about studying in Australia, which indeed I'm very happy to highlight, because Australia, although it might be seen as just a medium country in the world, is the third most popular destination for students and has 8% of the world's total students, and around 50% of the tertiary students studying in Australia are from overseas. And that is even despite COVID. And now that Australia is opening up again after the last year or so where COVID restrictions have been intense, we are re-engaging very much with international students. 80% come from Asia, but we also look to diversify even more than that into Europe and Africa. And I know from here in The Hague that there is a lot of interest in Europe. And aside from providing opportunities for students, there's also the possibility to work while you're in Australia. So while, except for developing countries, scholarships are quite limited, we are very competitive in price rise and in price terms for the cost of the education, and also very competitive in terms of opportunities to work while you're studying, and finally quite competitive in terms of a very modern marketplace. So we encourage students to go back to help develop their own countries, but we also inevitably, and we welcome the students who stay and contribute to our own economy. We are all part of a globalized world, and that is extremely important going forward. I have to say, I myself find events like this very exciting, because I too have in the past mooted. In fact, my first visit to The Hague was when I was mooting for ICJ.
Can I interrupt you, because my colleague Elise Varley actually wants to give you questions indeed, and then it is based on what you are seeing at this moment.
Yes.
Ms. Varley, could you?
So let me then, therefore, since we've got to that point, say thank you very much, and I will end my introductory remarks, and very happy now to move over to the interview stage, and just wish everyone very well.
Thank you. Ms. Varley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Laurent, and thank you, Your Excellency, for being here with us today. So we are launching the Hague Inter-University Law Debate Tournament, and in general today, students have many opportunities to develop their skills through moot courts or public speaking competitions. And before you started your diplomatic career, you were a student as well. So you studied at the University of Sydney, and then you went to Cambridge. Did you participate to this kind of event at that time? And maybe do you recall any activity that might have helped you develop certain skills?
Absolutely. And yes, already even at school, I was participating in debating. And of course, when I went to law school at Sydney University, we did have mooting there. And in fact, my first moots were in the courts of our own Supreme Court in New South Wales, in Australia, where Sydney is the capital of New South Wales, one of our states. But of course, when I went to Cambridge, I was very excited to join the Cambridge team coming over for the Telders moot, to moot in front of the International Court of Justice. And that was my first visit to The Hague. I still have a photograph from those days. One of my friends and colleagues from Cambridge is now the Luxembourg ambassador to the European Union, and we fondly recall that time. And it exposed me to The Hague, it exposed me to the International Court of Justice, and really encouraged me to think about a career which would, in my diplomatic career, have a focus on international law. And some few years later, as it happened, I was then working on two Australian cases before the International Court, one with regard to Nauru, a small island in the Pacific, and one with regard to the case of East Timor at that time. So yes, I have to say that experience is so important, and I do hope that at some point many of your participants will be able to come here to The Hague, as well as, of course, at this moment, mooting virtually and developing a feel for international law.
During this tournament, the teams will debate on international law issues. And I simply wanted to know, what is your opinion about the representation of Australia in international judicial institutions? And would you consider that it is an influential nation in the field of international law in general?
Yes, I do think so. I mean, only last night at dinner at my place, I had our new judge of the International Court, Judge Hilary Charlesworth, formerly a professor, just newly elected, and Miss Helen Brady, who is a lead prosecutor at the International Criminal Court here in The Hague. Both Australian, both women, as I would note, and they're two of our most senior international lawyers in The Hague. But we have very many. I've just been involved just immediately before this meeting in a meeting of The Hague Conference, and we have two young Australians assisting the Secretary General of The Hague Conference, which the council meeting was being chaired by Australia as well. And of course, there are many well-known professors of international law from Australia. Tragically, one of the best-known, Professor James Crawford, who was previously a judge on the International Court, died last year. But there are others, like, as I've just mentioned, Hilary Charlesworth, stepping up into his shoes. So I think Australia does have quite a role, but so do many other countries. That's the great thing about international law. It is a real cooperative group of many countries, and the professors are learning from one another, the students are learning from one another, and even practicing international lawyers myself are learning and interacting in that space. And I'd like to, in that regard, too, just highlight the wonderful work being done by the International Criminal Court and Karim Khan at the present time, and the action that they are now taking on war crimes in Ukraine.
Thank you. As you said earlier, Australia can also be a destination for academic exchanges. In your opinion, what are the main advantages of pursuing legal studies there? And what could you say to motivate students, maybe?
Well, I think Australia is always a great country to visit. And of course, we've been a little cut off for the last year or so. So people are anxiously looking forward to students and other tourists to come again as the COVID restrictions can now lift. I think one of the best things about Australia is its very multicultural nature. You know, when I was ambassador before in Zimbabwe, and we had a major program in Southern Africa to bring African students on scholarships to Australia, One thing that many of the African students coming back said to me was, we hadn't expected to meet so many Asians in Australia, so many from China, from the ASEAN countries, from India. And they said that was incredibly helpful to us, because we were interacting with countries we had and fellow students and cultures we'd had nothing to do with before. So I think for students, particularly coming from Europe, as many of you are, it really does immerse you into the Indo-Pacific and to the cultures of the Indo-Pacific, and particularly from Asia. So that can be an advantage, along with all the fun things to do, the generally good weather, although I know we're having some floods at the moment, and the very relaxed lifestyle. And finally, I find in Europe these days, most people know English well. So education is in English in Australia. So that also makes it easy for many.
And on a practical matter, so are there financial support? For instance, students without large resources, can they come? For instance, can they get scholarships or SIG jobs?
Yeah, not much from Europe, if I might say so. We do have under our development programs some scholarships programs. We call them Australia Awards for Asian and African countries. In a previous role as Assistant Secretary for Africa, I was very proud of the work we did in that space. But from Europe, generally, we find that most students have access to resources, and they will have to pay fees. The fees are quite competitive. They can be from €10,000 to €20,000 a year in total, but that's competitive with Europe and the United States of America. And there is opportunity to work while you're there. Of course, for some very exceptional students, there are some scholarships, and sometimes their own institutions will give them scholarships. But to be frank, I know that's quite limited. So generally, students coming from Europe will be coming with their own resources. And mostly they find that Australia is not an expensive place to live.
Great. One last question before you leave us. As a diplomat, you have lived in dozens of countries and you have traveled on many continents. It must have been really enlightening. So, do you have a place maybe or an area that has really changed you?
Yes, thank you. And thankfully you warned me of this question, because it caused me to reflect. And I've always said that my posting at the United Nations in New York as a legal advisor in the 1990s was indeed for me my definitive posting. It was, of course, wonderful to be exposed at the United Nations in New York to all the nations of the world, and to come together. I was working on legal and disarmament issues to work through problems. We had, perhaps I didn't even realize how important it was at the time. We were aware that it was a good historic moment, despite some tragic events unfolding, especially in the Balkans, which have now been largely resolved and managed. So, but in fact, it was at a time when the United Nations, the Security Council, was cooperating much more closely than tragically it is at the moment. And as a result, with support from Russia, from China, and many countries, we were able to make progress on negotiating instruments like the Statute for the International Criminal Court, for the Chemical Weapons Convention, which led to the OPCW here, and some real progress in the elimination of chemical weapons, and indeed to build a greater sense of cooperation amongst the world. We need to recapture that spirit now. But it inspired me for the rest of my life to be committed to multilateral solutions. And it gave me a sense of the real opportunity for global cooperation, which all international lawyers aspire to. And of course, as an international lawyer, it was the best possible exposure to the job. And so while I've been in very different countries, done bilateral work, that's inevitable in a diplomatic career, I'm very glad to, towards the end of my career, come back to The Hague to be able to work in the institutions we established, like the OPCW and the ICC, and to continue to contribute to that global world. And I hope that all of your participants from every country which they come from will have a similar sense of commitment, because as we are reminded only this week, we still live in a very dangerous world where not all leaders and not all governments are committed to the principles of the United Nations Charter, which binds us together.
Well, it's quite inspiring. Thank you very much for your time.
It's a great pleasure, and I wish you all very, very well in your competition. And I hope I will be able to hear more about it. And I hope you have been given some very interesting and tricky questions of international law to debate amongst yourselves.
Yes, indeed. Many thanks, Your Excellence. I know that you have to run to another meeting, but many thanks to have spoken to so many students and give the inspiration as well for an international law career. Many thanks again.
And merci beaucoup to you, Aurélien, and for having me today. I feel very privileged to have joined you.
Merci beaucoup. Thanks again.
Let's go. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bonne chance.
So now I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Anna Maria Urbanova, who will present the second set of guests we have this time. So Anna Maria?
Thank you. Thank you also to Your Excellency. I see it still on a call. And thank you also to my colleagues for the introduction and the very good beginning of starting officially the Hague Inter-University Law Debate Tournament of 2022. It's been an exciting journey since 2015. It's our second fully virtual edition and our third international expansion for the number of teams that can participate in the edition. And it's a great joy to welcome all of you. And already I wish you much luck in preparation and in the matches as well as the accompanying events throughout the competition. And to introduce our second guests, those would be the winners of the last year's edition, Mr. Sayed Altamash Khalil, Martin Stup, Alexandra Sarban, who have prepared a very nice message for all of you and perhaps some tips that you can use in the upcoming days.
Hello everybody, my name is Altamash Khalil and welcome to the opening ceremony of the Hague Debate Tournament 2022.
Martin Stumpf, a fellow debater of these two brilliant debaters.
My name is Alexandra Sharban. Welcome to the Hague Debate Tournament of 2022. Today we're going to talk to you a little bit about our experiences.
So for us, I think I speak for everybody in our team when I say this, that it was an exhilarating journey for us. It was a journey that we all remember, even though a year has passed now. It was excellent, if I may add. It was tough because it was the first time that the tournament had been arranged in a league format, and we did our best.
So the purpose of this video was just, we wanted to give you some words of encouragement and to maybe alleviate a couple of your stresses if you're worried about the tournament and debating and public speaking like we similarly were at the start of our journey in this.
The most important thing is be confident and do a lot of research. An important part of the debate tournament is being able to divide the roles among yourselves. How did we do it?
So for the purposes of our team, I took over the opening speeches, which were essentially 4 minutes for us in our tournament. And I think personally that the opening speech has to be quite emphatic. There are 3 things which I essentially used whilst delivering my opening speeches. The first thing that I always made sure was to have a hook line. So what that essentially did was capture the audience's attention, because although it's a legal debate, you want to make sure that you capture or you play with the emotions of the audience. The second thing that I always made sure was to have a methodical structure to the speech, because if the audience cannot follow your speech, then they won't be able to understand anything. So it was very important. And the third thing that I did was have a very emphatic, vociferous conclusion, because no matter which side you're representing, you always want to make sure in debate that your side is the best side. So that is essentially my advice on how to particularly draft an opening speech.
So I was mainly involved in the rebuttals as well as assisting in the research and the writing as well. And especially the closing bits I always wanted to do because I like to drive the point home. And because unlike Sasha, I'm not good at thinking on my feet and spontaneously coming up with good points. So I like to take a lot of notes during the debate and then have a nice conclusion. And I think overall that was the key to our success. We immediately identified what each member of our group was good at and we delegated tasks accordingly.
As the person who was in charge of the rebuttals and wrote speeches as well, I think that the most important part of the debate tournament is research. It is very important to me because I think that even if you're not able to think of your feet, you're always able to anticipate what your opponent is going to say. In this debate tournament, you're preparing for both pro and con sides, which means that you're able to defend your position in both pro and con sides. Hence, why you're able to, in the end, say, okay, I'm ready for this. I'm as prepared as I can be for the rebuttals, and that's the most important part of the person who is doing the rebuttals in the first place.
I think a factor in why we were always so well prepared is because we prepared obsessively and excessively. We always tried to preempt what the other side might argue, and for each point that they might have for pro or con, we would have 3 rebuttals at least, and then try to rebut those rebuttals ourselves. So preparation is key.
Absolutely. We were always going against each other. Sometimes
Exactly.
I would go against Martin and be there like, okay, what do you think about these rebuttals? What do you think about that? Can you rebut what I'm saying? Can you rebut what you're saying, etc.? So it's a constant process of improving yourself by going against yourself.
When we finished the journey and looked back, it was a journey for us to behold. Because you see, from the level that we had started as second year law students, all of us, almost into our third year, we could see the development. We could see how well now we could read case law, how well we could analyze a particular law and break it into its element. And these little things, which may not have been that significant in the beginning, were very significant at the end of the debate tournament.
Yeah, it was a long journey. I think 12 debates over 9 months, but as you can see, it really paid off for us, and it will for you as well.
It certainly did. One little thing, one rule of competition that you always should remember is always wait until the results are out and don't rule yourselves out.
Good luck to all of you. It is definitely worth it. It is an experience worth beholding, and it will definitely teach you something that you will keep with you for the rest of your life. So good luck, and wishing you all the best from the Hague Debate Tournament team.
Thank you very much. So now we'll move to the second part, meaning the themes, and of course announcing the composition of the groups. So we share my screen while my colleague will be telling more about the themes, of course.
Indeed. And perhaps before proceeding to the themes, an exciting news for all of the participants would be that our partnership with Oxford University Press is for the participants of the tournament. All of you can look forward to the access codes to the International Law Collection of their law trove. The access to this collection will last for 12 months after redeeming your access, and you will receive, of course, personalized access points after the opening ceremony. And our second partner, Absolute Internship, you can look forward to exciting scholarship opportunities for the winners of the tournament. And of course, we'll be keeping you updated for the development on this.
Now, moving to the themes, yes?
Indeed. As you would know, the competition is divided into 2 stages. We are first starting in a group phase, and then we are proceeding into elimination phase. The group phase takes place in the months of March and April, and it will happen in the groups of teams that were allocated by algorithm, and the 2 best teams from each group then proceed into the elimination stage. On the first day of the group phase, which you can look forward to at the end of the March, the general theme of all debate statements, which are unique to all matches, is the contemporary social challenges shaping our modern society. So this would be the general theme of the first round of the debates. All of your debate statements for the matches will be unique and specific only for your match.
Now, concerning the second day of the group phase, yes, this time it will be about environmental questions. So it means the title of that theme, so it means all the topics for that second match actually will be connected to the fight against the environmental emergency in a capitalist world. So it means concretely, of course, you will have to look into some environmental questions, but as well economics and, of course, law applied to those questions.
On the day 3 and the last day of the group phase, you will be looking into political powers in democratic societies and specifically the exercise of the political powers. Again, an interesting subject area which diverse. The debate statements can be made for all of you, and including subjects on the elections, on the recognition of white vote perhaps, or other interesting areas which are current and up to date. So perhaps in your preparation, generally, what we recommend is that you would look into what are the current developments in the particular themes that are announced for the competition. And of course, every 10 days prior to your match, you're going to receive your specific debate statement.
So now, it will be at the end of the group phase. So it means what you will hear afterwards will be for the elimination phase. So for the teams who qualify from the group phase to the eighth of finals, so it means the 16 teams will be in eighth of finals. The topic will be concerning the conflict between personal freedom and public health reignited by the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are in a situation nowadays we are still having the pandemic, but there have been a lot of developments in national law, international law, that of course create a lot of content for law studies and research, obviously. So we'll be asking you to give arguments on some topics which are connected to this theme in the eighth of finals.
Right. For the quarterfinals, you can look for a more economic subject, dealing with the economic recovery in the fragile context. After 2 years, over 2 years of pandemic, it's been a journey for everyone. And in this part, you might discover debate statements dealing specifically with COVID recovery, as well as developments in the current and new economic areas, as well as with the situations that are happening throughout the world in the recent months. Again, this is a quarterfinal subject, so we are nearing the themes for the elimination stage.
For the semi-finals, so meaning the last 4 teams in the tournament, so we'll be already in early June, end of May, early June. So the main theme of the semi-finals will be the game of international relations between sovereignty and cooperation. So here, of course, it's concerning the diplomatic affairs, law applied to those international relations, and how actually there are change and reforms as well needed sometimes in some organizations, for example, concerning the international relations, because in 21st century, of course, a lot of, let's say, context is different than in the 20th century. So you are the new generation of lawyers. It is a moment, of course, to ask you to debate on this, because you will be probably, maybe, the decision makers on that question.
And finally, for the finals, and perhaps on one of the most or the fastest developing subjects of international and also national and regional law on technology, the regulatory challenges stemming from the development of new technologies. In the finals, the finalist teams will be dealing with the subjects relating on the technology developments, on legislation, how is it keeping up, and perhaps what are the specific regulatory challenges in a specific scenarios.
So to recap, you will receive the topics for the first days of competition, so the group phase. So meaning we talked about the question of social challenges in modern society, and then it will be about environmental emergency in a capitalist world as well. And finally, for the group phase, the political powers in democratic societies.
And for the elimination stage, which would be for the two teams that have the highest scores in their group from the first 3 matches, we proceed to the topics relating to the conflict between personal freedom and public health reignited by the pandemic, then proceeding to the search for economic recovery in fragile context. And the 2 finalist teams will be looking into regulatory challenges in the context of new technologies.
So now that you know the themes, of course, the last part of this ceremony is about to know who will be your opposing teams, of course, during this competition. So we talk, of course, only about the group phase because for the moment we only know the teams competing at the beginning, and later, of course, based on your performance, you will know who are the opponents for the elimination phase. This group phase will start in a few days, so in March, and will finish at the end of April, and then the elimination phase will continue in May and June. For the group A,
the Group A is composed of the Hague University of Applied Sciences from the Netherlands, the Yerevan State University from Armenia, University of California, Los Angeles from the United States of America.
So the way it is, because as you see in this group, there are 3 teams competing, so it means there will be 1 match for each day, and it means that every team will have at least met 1 time during the group phase the 2 other teams. So we start with day 1. Yerevan State University will have the first match against the University of California, Los Angeles, so that will be at the end of March. Then in mid-April, it will be the turn of the Hague University of Applied Science with the current champion, because last year they won the competition, against the Yerevan State University. And then at the end of April will be the last match, which will be the Hague University against the University of California, Los Angeles. Now the group B.
For the Group B, we welcome the University of Bologna from Italy, University of Akureyri from Iceland, and University of Burdwan from India.
So here, same situation with 3 universities in this group. So it means that the first day of match, which will be at the end of in the 18th or 19th of March, will be between the University of Bologna against the University of Akureyri. Then the second day of match will have the match between the University of Akureyri and the University of Burdwan, and the last match will be between the University of Bologna and the University of Burdwan. Now the group C.
In the Group C, we have the Ukrainian Catholic University from Ukraine, Qatar University from Qatar, Jagiellonian University from Poland.
So here, a few words, we are in contact with the students from Ukrainian Catholic University. We will keep, let's say, checking about their safety, but they will be watching this video, so we can tell them already what will be their first match. The first match will be in the second day, but the first day will be between Qatar University and Jagiellonian University. Then the second day will be Ukrainian Catholic University team against Jagiellonian University team. And the first and last match will be between Ukrainian Catholic University and the students or the debate team of Qatar University. So now we move to the group D.
For Group D, and we are nearing the second half, we welcome Pontifical University of Chile from Chile, Paris Sorbonne University from France, and Tilburg University from the Netherlands.
Here as well, there will be 1 match for each day, starting with, in the end of March, Pontificia University of Chile having the first match against Paris 1 Sorbonne University. Then the second day will be in mid-April between Pontificia University of Chile against Tilburg University. And the last and third match, which will be between the Paris team against Tilburg team. Now moving to the Group E.
And in Group E, we welcome 4 universities, starting with University of Colombo from Sri Lanka, continuing with University of the Free State from South Africa, Western University from Canada, and Reykjavik University from Iceland.
So here we have a group indeed of 4 universities. It means 2 matches each day of match. So for the first day of match of that group, the match will be between Western University, so the Canadian team, against Reykjavik University in Iceland. And in parallel, the University of Colombo will have its first match against the University of the Free State from the Republic of South Africa. For the second day of match, so which will be in mid-April, that will be with 2 matches. University of Colombo having this time the match against Western University, and in parallel, the University of Free State will have the match against Reykjavik University. And for the last day of match, so day 3, not jour 3, the University of Colombo will have the match against Reykjavik University, and the University of the Free State will have the match against Western University. Now moving to Group F.
In Group F, we welcome National University of Singapore from Singapore, Chuo University from Japan, University of Melbourne from Australia, and Makerere University from Uganda.
So here a group with 4 universities as well. So it means that for the day 1 of the match, it will start with NUS, National University of Singapore, having the match against Chuo University of Japan. Then in parallel, the University of Melbourne, having their first match against the students from Makerere University in Uganda. And for the second day of match in mid-April, National University of Singapore will have the match against the University of Melbourne. And Chuo University will have the second match against Makerere University. And finally, at the end of April, will be the match between Chuo University against University of Melbourne, and in parallel, National University of Singapore against Makerere University as well. Group G.
In Group G, our almost final, but just as important group of all the participants, we welcome Catholic University of Lille from France, a long returning participant of the competition, Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam from Vietnam, and Kathmandu University from Nepal.
Yes, so this group with 3 teams will start with a first match between the students from Vietnam, so Diplomatic University of Vietnam, against the Nepalese team from Kathmandu University. Then in mid-April will be the match between the students from the Catholic University of Lille, the French team, against the Nepalese team from Kathmandu University, and finishing between Catholic University of Lille debate team against the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam team. And finally, the last group.
Yes, and our final participants, we welcome a returning champion from Dom Helder Law School from Brazil, University of Lagos from Nigeria, and Sofia University from Bulgaria.
So here we will be starting with the match between the University of Lagos at the end of March against the students from Sofia University from Bulgaria. For the second day of March, so it will be in mid-April. There will be the match between the 3 times champion Dom Helder Law School against the University of Lagos, Nigerian team. And the last day of match, which will be at the end of April, will be the match between Dom Helder Law School and Sofia University to conclude the group phase of the Group H. So now we, let's say, finished, and now we give you the overview. As you can see, we have some groups which have 3 teams, some groups who have 4. The reason is because this period is very difficult as well for some teams. They informed us, unfortunately, that due to the high amount of work connected as well to the pandemic, it was difficult for them to commit to participate during this spring. But still, the 2 teams who win each group, let's say, will be qualifying to the 8th of final. So it means in 8th of final you will have still 16 teams starting in May, the elimination phase. For the moment, you will receive during the next days actually the links to connect on WebEx for your match, but as well, please inform us in case you cannot make it or if you have an exam, for example, because we are not aware of all the exams, and now I guess you have your own agenda. But as soon as you receive the link, you let us know if indeed there is a conflict of agenda, and obviously we will be looking for an alternative to make sure that obviously you focus on your exams or your duties at the university, and then it will be let's say manageable for everybody for all the match. Please remember that all these matches will be broadcasted on YouTube, like this ceremony. So it means that you will be able to watch and to share as well the links to watch your match on YouTube. So they will be scheduled on the YouTube channel of the Corax Foundation, and it means that you can promote, of course, your performance, your university, your debate club maybe, or a moot court society, to the whole world, because everybody will be able to watch your performance, including the judge, because the judges themselves come from many parts of the world and they will be assessing your performance. Do you want to add something, Ms. Urbanova, before we finish?
Perhaps just to repeat well wishes to all the participants so that you can prepare in your preparation, of course, during your matches, and prior to closing the live stream of the opening ceremony. And just a reminder also for those of you watching on the YouTube, is that in the upcoming days you will all receive the access codes to the International Law Collection of the Law Trove. Throughout the competition, we'll be updating you on the accompanying events for networking, and of course, perhaps some interesting academic talks that would be of interest to you for your studies. And we look forward to communication between all of the teams. And again, best of luck to all the participants.
So, thank you everybody, thank you everywhere where you are currently, and we are looking forward, of course, to listen to all your performance and showcase, of course, all your legal knowledge. And don't forget as well to use this event to make new friends and connections from other universities, because this is how actually you will build your network as well. Many thanks again, and we keep in touch, and wish you a great rest of the day, or night, or morning, depends where you are. Thank you again.
I'm sorry,
Yeah?
would it be... is there a possibility to make a short statement, because the team of the Ukrainian Catholic University is actually here. I'm the representative, and we would like to just tell a few words about our situation so that everyone understands. Is that would that be possible?
So could you tell us who you are, because I don't see the list of speakers. Where are you calling from? Hello?
Of the Ukrainian Catholic University, and I would like to make a short statement.
Yes, but do you want to tell it now, or directly in writing, or what do you prefer?
No, I would just like to say a few words at this point, because I don't think that we will be able to actually join in the next meetings. So I think it would be good if I could just tell a few words right now, so that you understand.
Yes, I understand. So first, what I want to tell is we really hope that you will be able to participate to the match, okay? So we will send you the links, and make sure that, of course, you can let us know, of course, but we really hope that, of course, your team can participate. We know, of course, the context very well, but yes, for the moment, we want to tell this concerning the organizing team. So, yeah, if you want to speak, you can speak now.
Yes, thank you. Just a few words, because we don't actually, and I don't actually have that much time, because in our current situation, in any place where you're live in Ukraine, the race off, and I would need to run to the shelter. So we can never be really sure exactly at which point we can be here with you. So it would be probably physically impossible for us to participate because at any moment we would have to run to the shelters. So I just have to briefly tell you about our situation is that it is for us really difficult at this point to talk about things like vaccination, things like international law, because everything that's happened for the last week in our country really shows that a lot of these things are quite trivial when such situations as war come to your country. And right now, all of you are lucky to be in your homes and to get ready for the competition and study and exchange ideas. But unfortunately for us, at this point, there is no time for studying and no time for any exchange of day and night. We are receiving humanitarian aid, and we have a lot of work sorting it out. And even I spent this night sleepless because I spent it in the humanitarian headquarters in Lviv receiving aid, even though I'm a lawyer and I was supposed to probably do law stuff and studying and protecting human rights. But at this point, the only way we can protect our rights is to fight back. Because I really want you to understand that right now the front of the civilized world and democracy is right here in Ukraine. And I really hope that you understand this. And as I've seen from the help of the international community, a lot of the nations and a lot of the people do understand this, and we receive a lot of help. And the sanctions and a lot of things that come from the international community are very helpful, and definitely without it we wouldn't be able to withstand. And I really hope that in the future our team will be able to join and to participate in peaceful times, and we'll keep exchanging ideas and protect democracy and human rights. And I hope to see the criminals that are attacking my country in your city, in The Hague, very soon in the International Criminal Court.
Thank you.
So thank you for listening, and that's probably all that I want to say at this point. And
so what I want to tell is that we want all the students, including your team, to meet in person one day. So it's something that we really want, simply because we do it virtually because we started the project to do it in virtually. But the idea of this platform is to keep contact. So meaning that everybody wants to actually make connections, build projects as well for the future, despite indeed this very, very difficult context we are in at this moment, and particularly for the students indeed, like you in Ukraine. So what is really important is that we keep contact, all of us, and all of us we think about how we can make sure that things get much better. But I want to relay, I guess, the idea for everybody that we very much support your team, all the teams participating, and we really want to have you in person one day, okay, in The Hague or elsewhere, huh? But I really support, let's say, the other teams if they want as well to make connections with you as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of organization, we wish all of you, particularly the students in Ukraine and your faculty and fellow students and family members, but also to everyone else who is facing difficulties in the world right now, who are in our network. And of course, we welcome all of you, and we are here. If there is anything that we can do to support you, we are glad to do so. And again, wishing all of you safety and security, and peace.
Yes, and peace as soon as possible. Yeah. thank you again. We keep in touch. Very soon you will get information, about the proposed day and time for your match. And yes, so thank you all of you for your trust. Many thanks as well to my colleagues from the organizing team who are watching at this moment. And yes, we keep contact, and thank you again wherever you are in the world. Bye bye.